Detecto's eye-level Weighbeam physician scales are partially assembled upon delivery and only require a minimal amount of time to fully assemble and set up. This video will walk you through the final assembly and setup of the Detecto eye-level Weighbeam physician scale. On unpacking the carton, it should contain the column with Weighbeam headpiece, the scale base with platform cover, a height measuring rod, the wheel assembly, and a hardware kit containing a wrench and 8 screws and washers. Some models include a hand post. Carefully remove the scale from the shipping carton and inspect it for any damage that may have occurred during shipping. Keep the carton and packing material for return shipment should it become necessary. The purchaser is responsible for filing all claims for any damages or loss incurred during shipment. After unpacking, set aside your packing materials and start with the column. Set the column on a table or workbench, and on the open end, remove the cable tie securing the draft rod during shipment. Next, set the scale base on the table or workbench. Ensuring the Detecto logo on the Weighbeam headpiece faces the scale base, insert the column onto the scale base, holding it straight so that the draft rod enters the opening in the bracket. Using a Phillips screwdriver, attach the column to the scale base with the 8 screws and washers included in the hardware kit. Once the column is attached to the scale base, the draft rod located inside the scale column must be attached to the long lever in the scale base. The draft rod is what connects the Weighbeam on top to the scale base down below and transfers pressure when weight is on the scale up the column to the beam for measurement. Lay the scale on the table or workbench with the scale base hanging over the edge of the table or workbench to access the bottom of the scale base. Remove and discard the shipping tie wrap wires on the underside of the scale base. Insert the hooked end of the included wrench into the small hole in the front of the draft rod and pull the draft rod hook with the wrench to connect it to the long lever in the scale base. Push the long lever forward and hook the draft rod's hook onto the long lever pivot. The next step is to remove the shipping plug that is installed to ensure that the shelf lever linkage assembly in the Weighbeam headpiece stays aligned during shipment. Note that even with the plug installed, the linkage may still come out of alignment during shipment and must be checked. Gently place the scale on the floor and slightly tip it to one side. The linkage and shipping plug can be seen by looking up underneath the Weighbeam headpiece. Remove the plug and then visually ensure that the shelf lever assembly linkage is centered and properly aligned. The linkage must be free-floating for the scale to weigh properly. The included height rod can be attached by simply placing the slotted holes of both brackets on the back of the height rod over the 2 hex head screws on the front of the column and pulling down. Use the included wrench to tighten the screws, being careful not to over-tighten them. The wheel assembly is easy to install. Place the wheel bracket onto the back of the scale base, ensuring the wheel's axle is below the mounting holes in the bracket. Align the holes in the wheel bracket with those in the scale base, and then, using the 2 included screws and washers, attach the wheel assembly to the scale base. Adjust the wheel assembly to a level position and then tighten the screws. If your scale is a model that includes the hand post, remove the 4 hex head screws and washers from the scale platform and set them aside. Place the hand post onto the scale platform, align the holes in the hand post with those in the scale platform, and then install and finger tighten the 4 hex head screws and washers. Using the provided wrench, tighten all 4 hex head screws to secure the hand post to the scale platform. Now that the scale is fully assembled, it must be balanced before operation. Ensure the scale is setting on a level surface and slide both the small and large poise to 0, the far left position on the Weighbeam. Gently hold the beam pointer with your finger so it is centered within the trig loop area. Release the beam pointer and let it rise freely up or down. If the beam pointer doesn't remain centered, turn the balance screw located on the outside of the Weighbeam to the right or left using a flathead screwdriver until the beam pointer remains centered within the trig loop. Your scale's accuracy is dependent upon this step. Now your new Detecto scale is ready to use. Detecto, it's the name that means scales in the healthcare industry.